One morning he arose with the dawn, stepped before the sun, and spoke thus to it: "You great star, what would your happiness be if you had not those for whom you shine? For 10 years you have come up here to my cave. You would have tired of your light and of this route with me, my eagle and my snake. But we awaited you every morning, took your overflow from you, and blessed you for it. Behold, I am weary of my wisdom, like a bee that has gathered too much honey. I need hands that reach out. I want to bestow and distribute until the wise among the human beings have once again enjoyed their folly, and the poor once again their wealth. For this I must descend into the depths, as you do evenings when you go behind the sea and bring light even to the underworld. You super rich star, like you I must go down, as the human beings say, to whom I want to descend. So bless me now, you quiet eye that can look upon even an all too great happiness without envy. Bless the cup that wants to flow over, such that waters flow golden from it, and everywhere carries the reflection of your bliss. Behold, this cup wants to become empty again. The Zarathustra wants to become human again. Thus began Zarathustra's going under. Hello and welcome to Stand Up Historian. This was the Zarathustra prologue from the book Thus Spoke Zarathustra, famous book of Friedrich Nietzsche. Today, I want to talk about Friedrich Nietzsche. Thus spoke Zarathustra, the idea of the Superman, and why I believe Nietzsche came very close to a great truth but missed the most important piece. But before we begin, an important question must be asked. Why did Nietzsche choose Zarathustra as the hero and voice of his most famous philosophical work? He could have chosen a Greek sage, a German prophet, a fictional philosopher. Yet he chose Zarathustra. Zarathustra is the Greek form of the name of the Persian prophet Zoroaster, known in Persian tradition as Zarathustra or Zertusht. Within the ancient Persian religious world, Zarathustra is often associated with one of the earliest profound articulation of a cosmic moral struggle between truth and falsehood, light and darkness, good and evil. Whether or not he was historically the first, he became one of the great symbolic voices of moral dualism in human civilization. And that may explain Nietzsche's choice. If Zarathustra helped establish one of the most influential visions of good and evil, then Nietzsche dramatically reverses the symbolism by making Zarathustra the one who returns to announce a world beyond inherited morality. This was no accident. Nietzsche also wrote Beyond Good and Evil. So perhaps Nietzsche was saying the man who once gave mankind its clearest language of moral opposites must now be the one to transcend them. This is bold, this is theatrical, this is deeply Nietzschean. He takes an ancient prophet of moral order and turns him into the messenger of a new age. And yet, there is irony here. To destroy old categories of good and evil, Nietzsche still needed the authority of an ancient prophet to speak. That tension runs through the whole book. He saw the weakness of modern man. He saw the danger of the herd. He saw that people were losing their old moral and spiritual compass. These were real insights, but diagnosis is not cure. Nietzsche identified many illnesses of civilization, but then tried to replace God with man. And that is where the problem begins. Nietzsche gives us Zarathustra, a prophet like figure who leaves his cave after years of solitude. He has gathered wisdom, but now he is overflowing. He says, as I read in the beginning of this podcast, he says he is like a bee with too much honey. This is a beautiful image. Wisdom has become too much for him to keep inside. He must go down to humanity and give something back and empty the vessel which is his body. With him are the eagle and the serpent or snake. The eagle represents height, courage, pride, vision. The serpent represents wisdom, earth, danger, and transformation. And here we immediately see something interesting. Jesus of Nazareth told his disciples to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Nietzsche keeps the serpent but replaces the dove with the eagle. That change matters. The dove is peace, the eagle is power and strength. Jesus sends men into the world with wisdom and innocence. Nietzsche sends Zarathustra down with wisdom and pride. That difference explains almost everything. Zarathustra is not written like an ordinary story. Thus spoke Zarathustra, the book. It feels like a scripture. It flows like a holy book. Nietzsche knew exactly what he was doing. He wrote in the voice of prophecy, but he was not preaching God. He was describing a world in which old belief had lost its authority. That is the strange contradiction. He becomes a prophet against prophecy. He uses the form of religion while challenging inherited religion. He creates a holy book for a post religious age. But the question is this: if the old compass disappears, what replaces it? Nietzsche's answer is the famous Übermensch, the overman or superman. But here is my objection. If the superman becomes a new god, Nietzsche has not escaped religion. He has only replaced one altar with another. Now, bring this idea into our own time. Would Nietzsche's superman participate in, let's say, social media? I doubt it. Social media is the kingdom of the herd. It is marketplace of approval, likes, comments, outrage, attention, all built around the need to be seen, to be acknowledged. Nietzsche's Superman would not need applause. He might use such platforms as a tool, but he would never become a slave to them. He would not sit there waiting for validation from strangers. In fact, the modern influencer is often the opposite of the Superman. He appears powerful, but depends on reaction. He appears free, but is governed by attention. That is not freedom, that is slavery wearing a crown. And this is why the modern world creates false Superman. The false Superman wants followers. The real Superman does not need them. The false Superman wants to dominate others. The real Superman first masters himself. The false Superman turns ego into religion. The real Superman may never even call himself Superman. Now, let us be precise. Nietzsche did not preach crude tyranny. He was not simply saying rule others, crush others, dominate others. He sought higher human development, self overcoming, courage, create power, mastery of self. But powerful ideas are often inherited by smaller souls. And when greatness is detached from moral orientation, it can become distorted. Then higher man becomes strongman politics, collective supremacy, brutality disguised as strength, vanity disguised as greatness. Adolf Hitler was not Nietzsche's Superman. He was a counterfeit version. He needed the herd, mass rallies, uniforms, mythology, enemies, obedience, Nuremberg rallies. A true higher man would not need that machinery. On the opposite side, the collective quote unquote new man. But Nietzsche's Superman is not collective. He's not a state project. He cannot be mass produced. The moment greatness becomes a committee program, the idea has already collapsed. And here is what I think and consider as Nietzsche's mistake. And I believe Nietzsche made his deepest mistake here. He made the Superman look like a destination. But if life is self overcoming, there can be no final destination. The moment you arrive, the journey stops. And if the journey stops, overcoming stops. So Nietzsche builds a ladder to infinity, then tries to stand on the top rung. That is the contradiction. He wanted man to become more than man, Superman. But in doing so, he risked creating a God man. And the God man is impossible. We are not isolated gods. We are not complete in ourselves. We are parts of something larger. Nietzsche tried to remove God, but still used perfection as a blueprint. He cleared the room, but kept the floor plan. Now, let me make another distinction here. Nietzsche often attacked Christianity as historically practiced. Guilt systems, life denial, institutional hypocrisy, moral manipulation, passive conformity. And in many cases, those criticism had force. But Christianity as institution is not identical to the figure and person of Jesus. That distinction matters because many reject Christ for the failure of Christians. Those are not the same thing. This is where Jesus becomes essential. Nietzsche saw, quote unquote, turn the other cheek as weakness. I see it as incredible strength. It takes power not to react. It takes mastery not to hate. It takes discipline not to become what attacked you. It takes inner command to absorb insult without collapse. That is not fragility. That is sovereignty. When I speak of love, I do not mean softness. I mean strength used for protection, power restrained by wisdom, courage without revenge, care without loss of dignity, the ability to carry others without becoming weak yourself. Anyone can strike back, few can remain sovereign. Jesus does not create the perfect man by isolation. He creates him through love, sacrifice, discipline, service, and above all, truth. Nietzsche's Superman stands above mankind. Jesus walks into mankind and with mankind. Nietzsche says, rise above the herd. Jesus says, become fishers of men. That is a completely different model of greatness. And on the leadership, a true leader does not set the pace by the strongest. He watches the weakest. He makes sure the whole group can move. That is not weakness. That is burden bearing strength. The ruler says, keep up with me. The shepherd says, I will not lose you. That is why I believe Nietzsche's missed something central. Love is not the enemy of strength. Love may be its highest form, because strength without love risks vanity. Strength without conscience risks cruelty. Strength without responsibility becomes tyranny. And now I want to get your attention on the part of the book which is a person walking over a tight rope. And Nietzsche says, man is a rope stretched between animal and Superman, stretched over an abyss. That image is powerful because it also echoes religious imagination. Many traditions speak of a bridge, a crossing, a narrow path that you have to cross to get to the heaven. But Nietzsche's bring the bridge into this life. In most religious narratives, the bridge is afterlife. He brings that into the life. The crossing is now for Nietzsche. The abyss is now. The danger is now. Man is not complete. Man is in transition. The crowd watches the rope walker as entertainment. Zarathustra sees something deeper. He sees the man condition. We are all on the rope. The tragedy is that many think they are standing on solid ground, but it is not true in Nietzschean school of thought. How do we know the real Superman from the fake one when we see a Superman? Perhaps the real one does not need to announce himself. Maybe, for instance, Vincent van Gogh was closer to the Superman than many conquerors, not because he ruled others, but because he remained faithful to vision while the world rejected him. But there is a problem. Maybe the Superman is too large to fit inside a human body and imprisoned in the time human has to live. The image that came to me is this. The Superman is like ocean water, but inside a cup. The cup contains the same salt, the same essence, the same truth as the ocean, but it is limited by the vessel. The cup is the body. The cup is time, the cup is human limitation. And if water remains trapped too long, it decays. This brings us close to mysticism. Maybe the perfected man is not the isolated man who becomes his own God. Maybe he is the man who realizes he belongs to the ocean. And this is what is called perfect man, or in Sufism, insane kamel, or the perfect man. Nietzsche says, become yourself through will. The mystic says, become yourself by returning to the source. That may be the missing piece. Now we reach one of the most powerful images in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The shepherd with the snake in his mouth. The snake is choking him. Zarathustra cannot gently remove it. He commands him, bite. And the shepherd bites off the snake's head and spits it out. That is transformation, not a slow improvement, not polite self-help, a violent, sudden, irreversible awakening. Sometimes life gives you a snake. Sometimes fear is lodged so deep in your throat that you cannot speak, breathe, or live. And the only answer is not negotiation. The answer is bite. But after transformation comes another danger, doubt. After the bite, doubt. Your own mind may whisper it was not real, that you imagined it, that you never changed. You must remember that you bit off the snake's head and spit it out. That memory becomes your proof and your truth. Here is where my own thought enters again. What if the universe, in all its vastness, exists so that humanity can awaken? What if creation itself is not a random scenery, but the stage required for man to realize his worth? When a person understands that humanity has worth, he becomes responsible. That responsibility brings melancholy, not cheap sadness, a deep melancholy, a sacred melancholy, the kind that gives understanding depth. Because once you see the snake in yourself, you begin to see it in others. And it breaks your heart when people do not even know there is a snake in their throat. But you cannot bite it for them. That is the tragedy. You can guide, you can love, you can stand as an example, but each person must choose. Still, we cannot give up. Finally, I want to go to Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer saw the will as blind hunger. Desire creates suffering. Life pulls us from wanting to boredom and back to wanting again. So a life is this pendulum between wanting and boredom. His answer was denial, escape, quieting the will. Nietzsche rebelled against that. He said, no, do not deny life, affirm it, use suffering, overcome, transform pain into strength. Schopenhauer said, I want, therefore I suffer. Nietzsche says, I will, therefore I become. That is Nietzsche's power. But his answer is incomplete because will without love becomes domination. Power without compassion becomes cruelty. Self-overcoming without a compass becomes madness. So maybe the true answer is neither Schopenhauer escape nor Nietzsche's isolated Superman. Maybe it is the transformed man who bites the snake, crosses the bridge, remembers the ocean, and returns, not to rule humanity, but to serve. Nietzsche gave us a warning. Jesus gave us a compass. The snake gives us a test. The tightrope gives us the image of life. The ocean gives us the source. And maybe the true Superman is not the man who stands above everyone else. Maybe the true Superman is the one who has conquered himself so completely that he can finally love others without fear. This is not weakness. This is highest strength. Thank you very much. I would love to hear what you think about some of the ideas I put forward here. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, God bless you all. Take care. Bye.